there, Oklahoma insurance agents. Are you ready to unleash your potential and embrace pathways to new success? Well, if you are, mark your calendars because May 7th through the 8th, 2024 is going to be a game changer for all of us. Yes, that's right. We are all meeting at the Oklahoma City Convention Center for the Big IOK annual conference. Now, this is where the best in our industry come together to explore and to learn and to grow. And yes, I am going to be back too. I am going to be diving into the world of AI, and we are going to talk about digital doppelgangers. Yes, that's right. I am going to show you my digital doppelganger who helps me get all this stuff done. He's an AI-powered bot and he's amazing. I'm also hosting a breakout session where we are going to build our own digital doppelgangers in just 35 minutes. It is going to be so much fun. And this is your chance to harness the power of digital innovation like never before. But that's not it. We have an incredible lineup, including Kelly McDonald, Steve Anderson, and Dustin Wamsgans. Yeah, each is going to bring their unique insights to enrich your experience and your business. So, are you ready to transform your approach and skyrocket your success this year? Well, this is your moment. Join us for 2 exhilarating days packed with knowledge and networking and next level strategies. And don't just take my word for it. Register now and see for yourself how this conference can redefine your entire professional journey. Remember, it's May 7th through the 8th, 2024 in Oklahoma City. Let's make it a date to remember. I'll see you there.
Well, welcome to another episode of AgencyWise, your gateway to success. We're excited that you've joined us today, especially our Big I Oklahoma members and those of you who are out there with our sister state associations. Make a note in the chat today where you're watching us from. Of course, if it's the beach or somewhere gorgeous and warm and sunny, it's not quite consistently gorgeous, warm, and sunny here. And of course, we come from the state of where the wind comes sweeping down the plains. So it could still be a little iffy here for a while. Oh, wow, look, how cool. There's some Big I Nebraska folks, some from Nevada. Wow, so many different places as I just see them roll in. There's Ryan and Debbie, Angie, Leanne, our old faithfuls. It's great to see you with us again this month. We hope you'll plan to join us each month on the second Thursday at 10:30 Central for a thoughtfully assembled wealth of insights, expert knowledge, resources, all designed to enable and empower you and your organization to grow to the next level. I'm Sarah Bradshaw Ray. I'm your AgencyWise host. I'm creeping up on my 4th decade in this amazing industry, and I head up the Big I Oklahoma consulting team. We're excited to be back at the table today with Carey Wallace, founder and CEO of Agency Focus. Carey joined us as one of our experts back in January for our agency perpetuation and future owners workshops, which I got to say were absolutely fabulous. Carey, I know you're joining us today from somewhere gorgeous, warm, and sunny, Hilton Head, South Carolina. So, unlike our viewers today, you get a free pass for sharing how gorgeous, warm, and sunny it is where you are. So, tell us a little bit about where you are and your professional path and how you came to be such a go to resource in the agency valuations and perpetuation planning world.
Sarah, thank you so much for having me. And as you did that intro, I thought, well, I'm just going to keep quiet about where I'm standing and what the view looks like outside my window. I'm going to keep that to myself. So, yes, I've been in the industry for only about 16 years, actually. My background's in finance. I joined the industry almost as my second career. Some might even say my third career, if you count parenthood as one of those careers. But
Right.
I've been working with hundreds of independent insurance agencies throughout that tenure to help them make strong financial decisions, whether that is understanding the value of their agency, creating a perpetuation plan for their agency, or maybe just investing in the growth inside their agency. How can they do that? And how can they do that with all the information they need? And because I get to work with so many agencies, I can act as a sounding board and really help agencies weigh those decisions from a financial perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love how you use the word sounding board because so many times agency owners just don't know where to start, right? So I can imagine many of those hundreds of conversations really begin with the question, well, why is it so crucial for insurance agencies to know their value? So would you speak
Yeah,
to that?
of course. And, I think there was also this idea that I only need to know my value if I'm going to sell or if I'm going to acquire, if I'm going to do something with that. And in reality, it's probably one of the best investments you could make because your agency may be your biggest asset. And if not, it's probably in the top 5 biggest assets inside your life. So, knowing the value of your agency and knowing what drives the value of your agency positions you to know, where should I think differently? How should I consider something different for my agency? Should I invest in a different way? And how could I increase that value of my agency? If you wait until you want to do something, you won't be able to take the action to make those changes or do those things. The second is, time is knowledge and time is on your side. The faster you know the value of your agency and what's driving it, the better off you'll be at making those decisions. So I think anyone who has a business, independent agency aside, any business should know the value of that agency and have a plan for that agency or that business if there's recurring income, if there's staff, and if it's a complicated process to run your agency. Those are the key things to know. Should I have a plan and should I know the value? Because if that exists, having that knowledge positions you in a very, very different way than someone who doesn't know that information.
Mhm. Sure, absolutely. Well, I heard you say in January that the valuation calculation includes nearly 30 some odd data points. And in the interest of time, we can't go into all of those, but can you hit the high points or the key elements of an agency's financial and operational position? They're really the key drivers to value.
Sure, absolutely. First and foremost, an agency needs to be growing, they need to be profitable, and the agency needs to be transferable. So, what I mean by that is, can the agency continue to perform the way that it is if one of the key factors inside that agency changes? If the ownership changes, if a key employee changes, if a key carrier changes, like what are those things? So the driving factors or risk factors inside an agency are focused around concentration. Do you have so much invested in one area, one carrier, one producer, one owner, one line of business? So concentration, performance, are you growing? Are you doing it profitably? What's your loss ratio? Like those kinds of metrics that are performance based. And then what's the culture? Is your sales and service separated? Do you have contracts in place? What kind of technology are you utilizing? Are you a paper-driven agency or are you completely electronic? Those are all about transferability, because if you don't have some of those cultural things in place, making that transition will actually cause the buyer to be worried about the ongoing performance of that agency. So they really fall in those three categories. But the biggest drivers are, is it growing and is it profitable?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't even consider that if it is not a cash flowing business, its value is next to nothing, right?
Well, I mean, if it doesn't cash flow, that means that there's no way to actually service that loan. So it has to be able to be a profitable business for someone to want to purchase it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, which may be something somebody today that's with us needs to hear in terms of, wow, I need to get, my stuff together before too long, or I may not have an asset to transfer or sell. Absolutely. Wow. Well, I love it when I get a call from an agency owner who knows that their agency isn't necessarily, firing on all 5 or 6 or however many cylinders you're supposed to have, but they ask for help finding where they can be running their organization in a more productive and efficient and more effective way. So talk a little bit about best practices and how that can affect value. Maybe even give some examples of what agency owners can do right now that can have a positive impact on the future value of their agency.
Yeah, so we are super fortunate that we're in an industry where we have benchmarks, where we can look to those for guidance on how we're doing and how we might want to do things differently. So best practices is actually part of the valuation process. We compare the agency's current performance, current allocation of resources to best practices to determine where are you investing inside your agency, and are you investing in the right areas, or maybe are you over investing in some areas? So the one that comes to mind is the place where we invest the most of our resources, which is our people. If you do not have a compensation structure that makes sense and that is transferable, then you could impact your profitability and possibly impact the performance of your agency when you transition. And what I mean by that is, if you've adopted a compensation plan for your staff, which, by the way, is your most valuable asset inside your agency. It's your largest expense, but by far your most valuable asset inside your agency. If that comp structure isn't correct, or it isn't commensurate with what the industry expects it to be, a buyer would want to right size that. And the moment they want to right size it, it means that your retention inside that agency could fall.
Yeah.
So the people hold the relationships. There's no way around that. I can talk about numbers and statistics and all kinds of things, but the reality is we are in a relationship driven business. So making sure that people that provide continuity stay with that agency is really important. So no question about it, staffing, compensation structure, capacity inside your agency, those best practices benchmarks are incredibly important. The other is technology that you use inside your agency. There's some standard technologies that make it easy for your agency to transfer. Remember, again, growth, profitability, and transferability. So if you're using some obscure technology that no one knows how to utilize, it makes it difficult for your agency to be transferable. Conversely, if you're using no technology, all the information's in your head, there's absolutely no way to transfer that knowledge to the next buyer or to the next generation, or just in your absence. Even for not talking about selling, it's just difficult to provide the continuity to run that agency. So looking at what those technology standards are and how to use the technology and have clean data inside your agency is incredibly important. The last is one of the things that I would tell you keeps agencies from growing, and that is splitting out sales and service and really having clearly defined roles. You know, there's a lot of independent agents. There's 40,000 independent agents in our country, and a lot of them stay below 1.25 million, and it's because learning to scale and be able to not wear all the hats, but actually be able to split those two things up really creates some difficulty in scaling. So those are some of the ways we look at the benchmarks inside the industry, and as it relates to the value of your agency and the ongoing performance of your agency.
Okay, I'm going to throw you a curveball that I didn't tell you about, but you know, it comes to my mind because I talk to so many folks from time to time who are still dealing with paper files, or are still struggling with adopting technology, and I mean, like, can you even just ballpark like what kind of impact would paper files and lack of technology have on evaluation? I mean,
I can give you a story of an agency during COVID. It was a small agency. There was a single owner with a support person, no technology at all paper files. It actually went to probate, and it took over 6 months to put their arms around what exactly is the body of the customers and policies inside that agency in order to get to a price, because it went to probate. Carriers wouldn't release the information because there was no one licensed for it to transition to. It went to the brother and sister. They were non-licensed people. So I'm giving you, that's an extreme example. It also happened in the middle of COVID, so everything was stalled.
yeah,
My point is, paper files create uncertainty. There's lack of access to get to what is it today. It's really determined based on your carrier reports at that point. And if there's an inability to get to that information, it is really difficult to know what you're buying.
Yeah.
And the moment there's any hesitation about what the quality is or what the quantity is that you're buying, you're going to discount it.
Yeah.
Any good buyer is going to discount something to make sure they can pay for it and it's going to stay in place. So typically, an agency that does not have any technology and has paper files will probably be at least 2 points, 1.5 to 2 points lower than an agency that is not. It's really an interesting thing. It does depend on the size of the agency, the volume. There's a lot of other factors, but that really can hurt an agency significantly if there is uncertainty.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Wow. Okay. Again, a good word that I am certain somebody needed to hear out there today. Well, you know, there are some crazy stories going around about ridiculous multiples that people are selling their agencies for right now. What's that all about? Or is it even true?
You know, I hope a listener listening to this hears this loud and clear, because the value of an agency is based on the profitability, the operating profitability times a multiple to get to the value of an agency. The crazy part of that is that's two numbers. You take this number times this number to get to the value, right? We only talk about the multiple. Nobody's talking about like what's the average profitability of an agency. And 9 times out of 10, some agency owners don't even know what their profitability is or what it could be. So I'll answer your question about multiples, but part of my answer is agency owners should care more about their profitability than they should about the multiple number, because the profitability number is the one they control 100%. The multiple is actually based on what the market will bear, some of the risk factors inside the agency, like all those other things. But if you really want to hone in on the thing that you can affect change, It's the profitability. Multiples have been growing over the past 12 years. They've doubled. And the reason for that is we have recurring revenue that's in the high 90s inside this industry. Private equity loves that. And they came here and stayed here. They're not going to leave until those retention numbers are not going to change. So, and there is no no time in the near future that we think those retention numbers are going to change. So we are a great investment. That's number one. Private equity has driven those multiples up. But the other thing I'll tell you is, if you are an agency that is a 500 in revenue agency, the multiple you can command is very different than a $15 million agency. So it is not a one size fits all. There is not a rule of thumb. It's really based on the performance of your agency. Focus on your profitability and you will be able to drive the value of your agency up.
Yes, excellent. Well, and I got to say, I'm surprised you don't have your EBITDA hat or T-shirt on today, because I know that's a regular MO for you. Well, speaking of T-shirts, I've got my Feeling Optimistic T-shirt on today on purpose, because as we've seen, this sentiment really represents the mindset of so many agency owners related to the future of their agency from time to time. In January, during our agency perpetuation workshop, we went through a true to life, but also very bone chilling case study called Hope Isn't a Strategy. Now, without getting into all the details of the actual case study, I want you to talk briefly about what it is that you regularly see in the agency world related to this hope mindset that so many agency owners have, and why it is so important to have a plan for your agency's future.
Yeah, I think that there are agency owners that struggle. Like we're human beings. We don't like thinking about when we're not going to be here. In fact, it's actually difficult to imagine not being part of your agency when it's such a part of who you are and what you do. The most common is, I have an idea or I've got a handshake, but I've never put it to paper. Like, I've literally never written anything down, and I've not gone beyond a concept. I've never talked to someone and said, hey, listen, if something happens to me, I want you to understand my business and actually be prepared to be my plan. Instead, it's, well, if something happens to me, I know someone in the industry and therefore they're going to know exactly what to do. And sadly, it's not on paper. It can't be executed. And it ends up going the way that that agency owner never wanted in the first place. So I'd say, we have some studies in our industry that say that, 87% of agency owners have a plan. My experience is they might have an idea of what their plan is, but it is not in writing. Less than 5% of agencies that I engage with, when I ask them for their written perpetuation plan, have zero. So it's not in their operating agreement. It's not in a buy-sell agreement. It is in their head. It's an idea. Ideas are not plans.
Yeah, boy, isn't that the truth? Golly. Well, you'll remember probably that I'm third generation agency owner in my family. And I grew up in the agency, including taking naps as a kiddo, cleaning toilets, and typing fire policies in high school. And like so many agency brats, I never imagined that I would join the agency. But after college, I went and did my, big girl job in the big city. Came back to the agency, and about 5 years into the thing, my folks realized that they needed to formalize the desire for me to perpetuate the agency. And it took about 10 years for our plan to play out. And honestly, it was very successful. But the more I talked to other agency owners and siblings in the business, I realized how this is really very unique. So why don't more people have a plan for the future of their agency?
I think the simple answer is fear. I think it's fear of the unknown. I think it's fear of thinking about what that might look like. I think sometimes agency owners think, if I talk about not being here, maybe I actually talk it true. So, and there's another part to this, is running a small business is difficult. If you're working in your business and not on your business, you can have years go by before you pick your head up and say, hang on a minute, I don't have a plan here. So I think sometimes it is you're really mired in the business, in taking care of your customers, in taking care of your staff, and you forget to think about, wait, I've got to actually plan for the business and the continuity of our business. But that fear thing is really it's really interesting. The other part is they don't have all the answers. They might actually think, okay, my son or daughter is in the agency and I would like them to be the future. And then maybe they aren't wired to be an agency owner, and you've got to wrestle with, okay, wait a minute, what I thought I wanted, or maybe they decide and leave because they go to a different industry, and now everything you were thinking now isn't coming true. So sometimes you get so stalled because you don't have every answer, and you don't talk to someone to say, listen, here are the things that I do know. Help me fill in the gaps of what I don't know so I can put together a plan. Instead, it's kind of overwhelming because you don't have all the answers. So I think there's lots of reasons. And one of the others is they think they've got time. Like none of us think that something's going to happen to us tomorrow.
Sure.
I'm a perfect example. There's all kinds of surprise health things that happen to all kinds of people. And, when I was 48, I had that happen to me. No one ever in a million years thinks about it's going to happen to us. That always happens to other people. So people think they have time, and they take that comfort in feeling like they have time to allow it to slip by them. And I think it's a shame.
Yeah. Well, okay. So we I mentioned my folks. We talked about, just kind of not wanting to think about your mortality. But what about a 40 or 50 something agency owner? Do they need a plan, or is it just, my gray-headed parents?
Yeah. So any agency that has employees, that has recurring income, and have complicated processes that I literally just described, an independent insurance agency, those are the businesses that need a perpetuation plan, because you have something to protect. You've got people, and those people have relationships, and those relationships go with your customers, with your carriers. So you have to have a plan, because without it, it is the single biggest risk inside an agency to have a single owner at or near retirement with no plan. And the second biggest risk is a single owner without a plan. Like, regardless of your age, something can happen to you. Maybe the likelihood gets greater as you get older, but without that, people get uncertain. And the number one people that will get uncertain is your staff. And the moment your staff start leaving, then it's going to trickle to your customers start leaving. And if your customers start leaving, your carriers will start to be upset, and therefore you will not have the markets. So it is so critically important. If you have recurring income and staff, please, please, please put a plan in place for your agency.
Yeah. Well, and I can think that those carriers, tell me, are carriers interested in the fact that you have a plan? Do you see
Sure.
that?
About that. Yeah, of course. I mean, carriers want to know that we're investing in agencies that are going to be there and going to be there through the test of time. Your carriers care whether or not you have a perpetuation plan. Your network partners care if you have a perpetuation plan. Your staff cares if you have it. We didn't talk about this, but one of the biggest reasons to have a perpetuation plan is for your family. The last thing you want to do is put your loved ones in a position to have to step in and figure something out that they don't have a roadmap. And, there were 8 calls last year that I received where someone passed away suddenly without a plan. And sadly, those agencies sell very quickly and at a discount, because it is an urgent situation in order to make sure that we can minimize that uncertainty. And sadly, it happens at a time when that family wants to do anything but worry about that agency.
Sure.
They want to worry about each other. They want to mourn the loss of someone they love dearly. And it adds a lot of stress and undue angst
Yeah.
especially if the loved ones weren't inside the agency and they don't even understand the business. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember in January when I think it was when we were going through the case study, and somebody in the audience said, "Well, my agency is dealt with in my trust or in my in end of life plans, and it'll go 50-50 to my children. One happens to be in the agency and the other one isn't, but it'll be fine." Do you remember how everyone just gasped? So
We did.
speak to that. Speak to that.
Yeah, so there's a lot around that question, especially if you have a child in the agency that's helping build this asset versus one that is not. And how do you plan for the future of your children equitably and think about that. And at some point, the child that's inside the agency is building their future as well. So if you wait until you pass away, it's as if they didn't do anything to build that asset building up to that. And it really shouldn't be 50-50. It should be based on the contribution. So we had a long discussion about that conversation and I think, the person in the audience left thinking, wait, I think I might have a little more planning to do here.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple as I'll just wait till I die and everything's fine. In that case, that's that next generation's future as well. And you want to make sure that you are transitioning when it makes sense and also giving them a runway to make sure that they can plan for their future and the generations to come. You said you're third generation, right?
Yep.
Sometimes not planning well can cause agencies that are generational to not make it to the next generation, unfortunately. And I think we took that situation and said, hey, wait a minute, you might lose somebody inside the agency if you don't plan appropriately. Yeah.
Yeah, or develop them.
Right.
That's the other piece. Sadly, I know of an agency who's in its third generation, but that third generation wasn't necessarily developed and matured. As you were all the way back to earlier conversations about you know, um, being a good fiscal manager of the organization. It was kind of just one of those producers just want to have fun kind of mentalities. And so what has happened is second generation has, been out playing golf and fishing, but having to get back involved because third generation really wasn't prepared properly to,
Yeah.
to lead. And you probably have had lots of experience with that.
Yeah, and sadly, your energy level is different when you got to step back in. So then think about the performance of that agency versus one that it's been prepared and we've got a lot of momentum. It's really interesting. But yes, there are lots of situations where poor planning has a negative impact on an agency's performance, on the ability to transition internally. We didn't talk about it, but over 70% of the agents that I engage with have a desire to transition internally, which I love for our industry. I absolutely love hearing from someone. I want to give to someone else the opportunity that was given to me. And so while there's these crazy multiples that are out there, I'm okay with enough.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with creating an opportunity or a pathway to ownership for someone else, which, speaks volumes of some of the people inside our industry.
Yeah.
But if you don't plan appropriately, that isn't enough. And it actually limits the options that you have when it becomes an imminent decision that you have to make. So taking those steps early and putting the right things in place, developing the next leader, figuring out how to staff so they can step into leadership, transitioning those relationships are so crazy important. And they have nothing to do with numbers on a page. They have
Yeah.
everything to do with, interpersonal and cultural things that you need to work on inside your agency.
Yeah, intentionality. Well, that's a great segue into this last part that I want to talk about. Strategies for success. You've already begun to speak to it, but truly for the folks who are with us today, considering or recognizing the very important need for perpetuation planning, where's the best place to start? Maybe share some strategies or where somebody who doesn't have a plan at all at least can begin to get their head around this.
Yeah. If you don't have a perpetuation plan in place, I would sit down and think about, what do I know? What are my options? What are the possibilities? What is the art of the possible? And start taking bite-sized chunks at it and say, okay, if I'm going to do it internally, do I have any people that would make sense? Are they capable? Are they financially sound? Are they interested? Like, ask those questions. And if that is not a case, do I know anybody else inside the industry that I would trust in order to help my family transition the ownership of my agency?
Mhm.
Have conversations with those people and talk about, could we have a reciprocal arrangement where I can help you with your agency, you can help me with our agency. This industry is filled with people who want to help each other. So I would really say, start and take bite-sized steps towards answering those questions, and engage with people. Engage with a lawyer, engage with someone who understands valuation, engage with a bank. If you have an internal person, have them go find out, will they even be approved to do something with you? There's ways that you can start taking the question marks out of perpetuation planning, but think about it in bite-sized chunks. Don't think about it as this crazy overwhelming. And also, what would you do if it's an immediate, unexpected change?
Mm.
And what would you do if it's systematic over time? And make sure that you write everything you know down officially, and give someone a roadmap, as well as compile all the information someone would need to step in and plan for the agency. Make sure they're not searching for 6 months to find your accounts
Yeah,
or to your bank accounts or your logins. Like, give someone a roadmap, so if they have to step in and do something for you, it's one place to go, not 300 places to go.
sure. Okay, when you say officially, define that term.
So, um, perpetuation plans typically live inside your corporate documents, either your operating agreement, a buy-sell agreement. Like, it can't just be, I sent an email to my mother and said, I want to buy the agency. Like, that may not hold up. But if there is something in place, or you want to give someone first right of refusal to buy the agency, put it in a document that is signed and agreed upon. The last thing I'll tell you, Sarah, is, don't think of the plan as one time and done.
Mhm.
A plan should be something that you look at and read every single year as part of planning for your agency, because people change, situations change. The agency you're building is changing and growing in its value. I mean, all the time. So you should think about it not as this overwhelming thing I'm going to do once, but it's the thing that I'm going to shape, and then I'm going to revisit every single year to make sure that any of those assumptions I made haven't changed significantly enough that we have to change the plan completely. So,
Sure.
and if you think about it that way, it might become a little less overwhelming to build or start taking stabs at really shaping this perpetuation plan.
Sure, sure. Makes perfect sense. I love the piece about having that as an ongoing part of your annual review and planning process for the agency as a whole. Makes absolutely perfect sense. That's awesome. Well, gosh, it's been great to be with you today. Again, who knew we were going to get to be together so quickly? It's just been fabulous having you with us today and shedding some light on the very sometimes dark and hazy and confusing topic of agency valuation and perpetuation. So thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I sometimes wonder, the topic of death always comes up whenever I'm on a podcast or a talk, whatever. So, maybe we could talk about a light and fun, happy topic at some point too. But anyway, thank you very
Yeah,
much for having me on.
yes, we definitely need to put that on the plan for next time. Awesome. Good, good. Well, remember that if you'd like to share the webcast recording from today with your staff or others, you're going to find it on the Big Eye Oklahoma YouTube channel by the close of the day. We'd love to see you in May when our guests will be Monica and Mo from Savitol. That session is going to be focused on a topic that many agencies struggle with: staff stratification. We'll be talking with Monica and Mo about how you can extend your bench through alternative staffing solutions and resources. Like today, future episodes of AgencyWise are strategically curated treasure troves and insights, expert knowledge, and resources to enable and empower your agency to grow to unprecedented heights of success. As we conclude another enlightening episode, remember the journey to agency success is a marathon, not a sprint. So stay inspired, implement these valuable insights, and join us next month for another empowering session where knowledge meets growth. Until next time, keep thriving agency-wise.